All right, welcome. It's Ken Hammond here, and I am so excited today for my very special guest and someone who has become a very close personal friend in probably the shortest amount of time. And I wanted to introduce you to this man, and I'm so excited to have him, Mr. Anil Gupta. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Good morning, Ken. And the reason we became such good friends almost immediately is because of our vibrational energies. It's so easy to see that we're on the same wavelength.
Yes, I agree totally. And for people who don't know Neil, he's one of those guys where you could spend a minute with him and have this instant, deep connection that you really don't get a lot from other people. And Neil, just to tell people how we met real fast, it was last year in November. We're actually on Sir Richard Branson's private island, Necker Island, for a little tennis fun. And, we were there for at least 5 days, but I think we only met maybe like twice for a total of 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But as you know, it's all about quality and the deepness of connecting with people. And we really hit it off. And like you said, you really brought out an ease of sharing my true self. And I think I felt that from you as well. And, once I learned more about you and read your book, and talked with you more, I just know that we were going to be lifelong friends and really excited to help you spread your message out there to the world. So if you could, instead of me singing your praises all the time, which I definitely will, what is your superpower? What are you known for as far as helping people in the world? Because it's so important.
My gift is this: if you have a personal issue and you're coachable and you're honest, I can remove that issue within 30 to 45 minutes. And the bigger it is, the easier it is.
Wow. And that's, your book is called Immediate Happiness, right? Which is kind of like, I don't want to compare it to Get Rich Quick, but is this something where people get, is it that quick as far as, removing these blocks, removing these patterns that people get stuck in?
Well, reading the book is a manual. And so it teaches you how a human being works. Say, for example, you bought a brand new Tesla, you took it home and it broke down on the way home. You really wouldn't know what to do because it's so complicated. But if they spent 3 days with you explaining to you how it worked, and then it did break down, say, you know what, I know what to do. Let me try this, or this. And if it still doesn't work, then you call the expert in. So the book teaches you why we do what we do. Why do we sabotage our relationships? Why do we fall in love and fall out of love? So the first chapter in the book is about awareness. You cannot be fulfilled, you cannot be joyous, you cannot be in love, you cannot be blissful without awareness. So as you develop the awareness muscle, it just gets easier and easier and easier.
Yes, and let's talk about awareness. What does that mean exactly? Is that being present in the moment? Is that being aware of your past struggles? Is that being aware of planning for the future? What exactly is awareness, and how does somebody tap into that?
So awareness is a combination of everything. It's not being attached and just being an observer. So in this moment, if you just think of what you're aware of, I'm aware of the beautiful weather outside. Inside, I'm aware of the shirt on me, my buttocks, my feet, the atmosphere, my father in the other room. So then, as you become detached and you become an observer, you become more objective instead of subjective. And then a lot more information can be absorbed without you getting into an overwhelm.
Exactly. Okay. And I work with a lot of people who, want to improve their business. And, we talk a lot about marketing strategies, how to get more traffic, how to get more conversions, how to build your business. But as I found out, it seems like people can have all the tools they need, all the fancy websites, all the sales copy, whatever it is. It seems like though the missing piece for 99% of the people I see who are not having success online is that internal struggle that people deal with. Do you see that as well? And how does that relate to helping people, let's say, build their business or be a success in their mind?
You're absolutely right. It's all about mindset. And the people I've been coaching have an issue about not being good enough or not deserving or successful people are a particular way. So once you destroy those beliefs, it allows them to be who they really want to be, and it allows them to grow and be successful.
Yeah, which is so important. I think people sometimes focus too much on whether it's tools or things outside of themselves on why they're not getting what they think they want, when they're not spending as much time as it needed to really work on themselves. And going back to the billionaire Sir Richard Branson, you actually, I would love to hear your story about how you pretty much went from nothing, lost millions of dollars on the brink of suicide and became a billionaire yourself. And I want you to share that great story with people because I think a lot of people will get a ton of value out of it.
So 7 years ago, I was on the verge of suicide. I wouldn't eat with a knife just in case I did something stupid. I wouldn't walk in the street just in case I jumped in front of a car or a truck. I wouldn't walk up a flight of stairs. Because all it needs is 3 to 5 seconds of madness, and you think, this is it, I'm going to do it. But one thing that stopped me from doing it, well, a few things. One of them was an intervention with Tony Robbins, his wife's brother, and my wife. I was really stubborn. And,
this is the intervention it took 5 different people 5 different times, or one person, or 5 people at one time?
Well, it was 4 people, and it was around about this. It was at the same event. I somehow got an invitation to a private event, and then my wife said to me, "Honey, you made one big mistake." I thought, here we go. She's going to chastise me for the rest of my life. I said, "Honey, all right, what is it?" She said, "Look, you didn't lose it all. You still have me. You still have the kids, and we just want to be with you." I said, "What about the money?" She said, "I didn't marry you for the money." And this is a mistake that a lot of us do. We assume that's what our partners want, that we assume that's what our children want. But just a simple question. Ask your partner, what is it you really want in life? Is it money, or is it me, or is it time? What is it? And then once they tell you, you have clarity. Because
yes.
What's the point in doing something hoping that the other person will want it, or that's what they want, or that's what they deserve, or that's what they're seeking?
And that's a big deal, as you know too. Again, we work with a lot of business people who have their own businesses, and it's so important to have that healthy relationship at home, right? If your spouse or partner, if you're not communicating in a way that's making you both grow at the same time, that can have very detrimental effects on building your business. And as you know, you can make a ton of money and look like a success from the outside world, but if your relationships, your close family relationships are failing, that's going to be very hollow, right? It's not going to serve you and generate what you think you need to be happy. So let's talk about that, because we have talked about relationships and marriage and kids, and I want to share some great things that I learned from you with my wife. And you had talked about family and how important that is, and you asked me a question about who is number one, and I would love to have that conversation with you again and help you explain that whole basis and philosophy behind that.
So the number one mistake that people make in a relationship is that they don't make their partner their main priority. They start making their children the main priority, and this is what will happen as the male or the female makes the children number one. It's normally the female. The male feels it, but he'll say, "That's okay. It's a sacrifice I'm willing to make," because he was the number one priority before the child came. Then he'll start playing golf or tennis or going out with his friends, and then as time goes past, the child will go to university and leave the house, and then the female will turn around and say to the husband, "Hey, I'm back," but he says, "Well, I'm busy. I've got other stuff to do," and that causes a great problem. And what is the child learning? The child is learning, I'll make your child your number one priority. So the same thing will happen to the child. Whereas, the way I coach people is this: make your partner your number one priority. And that doesn't mean your child gets less love. And in fact, your child gets more love, because your capacity to love and be loved increases. And the child sees that the main priority is to make your partner your number one priority. they will do the same, and their marriage will never fail. If you make your partner your number one priority, they will never, ever leave you.
Yeah, and I've seen that too. And I first struggled with it because we have an only child, right? So it's one of those things where, I want him to feel like, or want her to feel like she is number one in my world. Like, daddy loves you so much. And, and I felt like, will she think of me? Will it affect her saying that, hey, mommy is the number one person in my life, honey, and we love you. We are so glad you're part of this family. And, you don't see anything detrimental to the children about that, telling them they're number one, again, because you're saying they'll see that in the relationship and know kind of where they, belong in the family, right?
But it's not, you don't have to physically say it. It's just who you're being. So imagine that the child is the number one priority of the mother, and when the child leaves college, the mother is going to be devastated.
Yeah.
Because that child was a source of love. But if the source of love was mainly from the parent, the other parent, the child still gets so much more love because the capacity is increased. So in no way does the child get affected adversely. In fact, it's a positive thing because the child feels loved by both parents equally, and she sees that unification. And very important, they will never have thoughts of the parents splitting up or being uncomfortable together because it's a unity. And that gives them the unity to be whole and complete.
Exactly, yeah. And I'm sure it's one of those things where, stats of, people with divorced parents have probably a higher rate of divorce themselves too, just from what they've seen, to your point, what they grew up with and not really developing that great relationship and making number one. So thank you again, personally, that's made, great strides in my wife and I's relationship as well. And, just put a great perspective on things. And you had an interesting story as well with your wife, as far as, I've been together with my wife for over 12 years now. And, we've had our ups and downs. And, I'm always trying to be more grateful for everything that we have. And, whether it's a little thing here or a little thing there, you had an interesting toothpaste story, right? Can you share that with us about toothpaste, for whatever that was about?
So in life, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Yes. So, for example, my wife would always get upset whenever I left the toothpaste lid off the toothpaste tube.
Yes.
And then I would do it deliberately just because that's what human beings do, and it would annoy her even more. Then one day, this is what she said to me, honey, every time you do that, I lose some love for you. Wow. I thought, wow, you know what? She's right. In that moment, she cannot love me. And why would I do that? Because as human beings, we love to be right. And we just do that just to be right. And especially me, I love to be right about being right. Just letting that go allowed me to be more loving. And a beautiful thing happened. I would do other things that she would appreciate so that I would get even more love. So instead of just going down a spiral, we went up a spiral.
Wow, yeah. And that's such a huge thing. And like you said, it's not what you say, exactly how you say it, that really has the effect on people. Some questions I get too where, some people are on different paths as far as, whether it's self-improvement or personal development. What do you say to somebody or a partner who wants a change in their life, wants a better life for themselves, understands that they really can't change the other person or wants to change the other person, but maybe they think their partner is stuck in their own patterns and kind of feels responsible to get both of them moving upward? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Where one person really wants to do better in life, wants to be a better person, wants more happiness, but maybe feels like their partner is kind of stuck in their own, habits or, old patterns, right? What do you suggest people do in that circumstance?
Well, I was guilty of that too. I would go to all these events and I'd come home and then I'd come to like a bit of negativity and I thought, what's going on here? And really the secret is this. If you want your partner to change, you have to change. So the realization I received was that although I'd go to all these events, I really wasn't implementing. So people think knowledge is power, but it's not. Knowledge is only power unless you implement. So therefore, it's who you're being. So if I started being more loving, more caring, more generous, more present, more joyous, more blissful, she would love that change in me, and therefore she would say to herself, I want some of that. And that would be an impetus to grow. Instead of me saying, oh, you should be, you should be, you should be, it doesn't work. And in fact, the more you say it, the more they'll resist.
Yeah, and that's such a big thing. And I noticed that too, where I think your partner is almost a mirror, would you say? And if you start focusing on little things that may bug you or something like that, and you just let those go and you work on yourself, it almost becomes, an uplifting event for both people. So you change something in yourself, and that little thing actually will spark something in your partner as well, which is, amazing. And I know a lot of people do that. And it comes back to where, it's kind of a cheesy line, a happy wife, happy life. But when you talk about your business again, if you know that you're rock solid with your relationships, building a business is so much easier, right? There's a lot more pure energy into that, knowing that you have a stable, growing relationship. I'm kind of going to go all over the place with you because, we have limited time and there's so many fun things. A lot has been said about the law of attraction. And you had mentioned something just in the last minute that sparked something in me. What are your thoughts about, all these books, The Secret, Law of Attraction? How does that fit into your life, and what do you recommend people do about that philosophy?
Well, people assume the law of attraction is if you say you want something, it'll come to you. But that's not the case. It's really about a mindset. If you say to yourself, I want to be a millionaire, that's fine. But it's not going to happen unless you take action. If you say you want to win the lottery, it's not going to happen unless you buy a ticket. Mm-hmm. So you have to participate. And once you change the mindset, you'll get results. So, for example, if you go into your back garden and say, there are no weeds, there are no weeds, there are no weeds, there are weeds. So unless you have to take action, and the more action you take, the better the results. And as you get results, your vibrational energy changes. And as your vibrational energy changes, you attract more wealth and more friendships and more love and more happiness into your life. So it's all about who you're being, how you show up.
Exactly. I agree too. I see so many people not get caught in it. It's a trap, but there's actually saying, hey, you could say what you want. There's no problem with that, but just wishing it and thinking it's going to come without taking an action and having a plan and getting feedback from that plan. One thing I heard a lot of is people are overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what to do here. I don't know what business to start. I don't know what computer to buy. I don't know if I should post on Facebook or I should post on Twitter or I should post on this. I think people get stuck in this, that they're overwhelmed and use that as a way to not take any action at all, right? And from what I've seen, and I don't know if you agree, is this all just self-doubt and fear? What is this overwhelmness coming from?
Really, it's coming from one thing, which is lack of clarity.
Okay.
A lot of people just don't have clarity. So the only way to get clarity is through awareness. Awareness brings clarity. Clarity brings focus. Focus brings action. Action brings results. And ultimately success, fulfillment, joy, bliss. But it has to start from awareness. So I didn't answer one of the questions early on. How do you gain awareness? So awareness is a muscle. So for example, you could have a post-it note on your computer, just the words aware. You could have a handkerchief in your pocket with a knot in it. Every time you're aware of that handkerchief, you can say, oh yes, that is there for a reason. You can have an elastic band or a rubber band on your wrist to remind you, I have to be aware. You could have your phone make a noise every 2 hours just to remind you to be aware. And what happens is this, as you become aware of being aware. And it's a muscle. As you develop it, it just gets stronger and stronger.
It was like you said, the more clear you are, the more clarity you have, all these little distractions or things won't mean anything. Yeah. You just take the right action, knowing you're going to get feedback from there, and it all sort of, falls into place. Exactly.
Sure.
No, that's amazing, and I think that's one of these things where so many people that I see online who say they're struggling is because they are not clear. They don't have clarity, and they look at all these other things as distractions, and then they say, "Well, I'm just overwhelmed. I just can't take any action." And it comes back to awareness and clarity, like you're saying. So, very cool. Getting back to family again, I love talking about marriage and partners and children as well. Tell me some advice for people who may not have the great relationship right now. Maybe they're working on themselves and maybe they just got out of a relationship. Maybe they went through a separation or divorce and they're looking for a new partner. What do you suggest for those people? How should they, go about that? Do they get on an online site? Do they hang out at a bar? What is the, advice you give for finding the right partner for you?
Well, it's really quite simple. They have to work on themselves first. Okay, otherwise they're just going to get the same results. So if they became kinder, more generous, more giving, more caring, more joyful, more blissful, physically healthier, and mental alertness. So if they do, I call them the three Gs, the three Gs to fulfillment. If they do these three Gs, they will absolutely be in a different place to attract the perfect partner. So can I share those three Gs with you?
Of course, yes.
The first G is you have to give. Give your time, your energy, your love, your joy, your kindness, your gift. Give it away without wanting anything in return. The second G is be grateful for what you have and don't focus on what you don't have. Fairly simple. And the third G is you have to grow. You have to grow emotionally, physically, spiritually, and mentally. So anytime you're not feeling filled with joy, have a look at your life and say which of those three Gs is missing. And then once you know which it is it grateful, giving, or growing? What part of growing? Is it emotional? Is it spiritual? Is it physical? Is it mental? Once you can pinpoint it, you can work on that area. And then as you work on that area, that's where you get the immediate results because you're filling a void. So the first thing you have to do is work on yourself. And the second thing you have to do is to forgive. I call forgiveness is the express pathway to freedom. What you focus on is what you get. So when a relationship breaks down, people focus on the bad things instead of the joy that relationship brought.
With Anil Gupta, talking about forgiveness. And, Anil, I have a very personal story with this as well. Back to where, I think it's safe to say 100% of the people have been, let's just call it hurt in the past or think they have been done wrong in the past and keep holding on to those pains, right? And not fully forgiving and being thankful for that. And, this is something that I kind of shared with you in person down in Necker. In 1999, we started a internet business with one of my best friends, had an amazing success, just tore it up, made a lot of money. And 5 years later, we got to a point where there was a lot of internal fighting going on, some disharmony in the company, some bad habits were acquired. And it got to the point where I was kind of forced out by my best friend, who I consider my brother. And even though I left that business and kind of moved on, I never really forgave him. I never, I always held a grudge. There was always a part of sadness in me that honestly, Anil, it was 8 years that I held on to that. 8 years of kind of pain and resentment. And I knew it affected the way I was building my other businesses. I knew that little bit, not a little bit, a lot of pain that I was holding in and not letting go was responsible for not letting my other businesses grow, even though it's been 5 years, 6 years, 7 years later. And it finally got to the point where I don't know what it was, but it was time and just realization that I'm like, you know what? I have to forgive my friend. I have to forgive myself. I have to let it go and see this as a great learning environment. And like you said, forgive and be grateful for what we had. And it was great, of course, what happened. I reached out by phone. It's been 7-8 years since we talked, and it was just this whole thing where it's like, hey, I'm sorry. And then that opened up him saying, I'm sorry as well. We're best friends, we're brothers. let's, get back together. And it turned out that he was the one who introduced me to Sir Richard Branson and, made it to Necker Island. So how funny is that? How that happens, where after 8 years holding on to something, letting it go, apologizing first, just saying, hey, I'm sorry for the way things turned out. And I want to move on and let it go. And if you still want to hang out and be friends, that's cool with me. If not, no big deal. But it opened this new door. And, business has taken off. Like I said, got to go down to Necker Island. So I don't know. Do you see that a lot? People hanging on to the past? And specifically, what else can they do to let that go? Do you take them through a process? Do you identify some things they may not even be aware of? How do you work with people in that regard?
I have a beautiful process that can eliminate any issues of the past within about 15 to 20 minutes. It's such a beautiful process. Forgiveness is a major part of people's unhappiness. And people think that the other person has gotten away with something. But there's nothing to get away with. And it's costing them. It's like, I'm sure you've heard this, it's like you taking poison hoping something will happen to someone else. Yeah. So... And forgiveness isn't about forgetting. You can still remember what happened, but you can stop it having power over you. So therefore, you can lead a beautiful life. Business is one aspect, but relationship is a major aspect. The inability to forgive will destroy any future relationships, and it's incredibly painful. It doesn't need to be that way.
Yeah, exactly. And it's such it's just like an emotional weight that's lifted when you can forgive, and, I know there's different degrees of forgiveness, maybe depending on the smallest thing of somebody said something mean to me or somebody did something in even a greater level, but it all comes down to forgiveness, no matter what it is. And it really made strides and really touched me emotionally and just, brought another degree of happiness to my life as well. And, again, I know you've had major success working with people and getting rid of these blocks and these past experiences that, whether they're conscious of it or not, that are holding them back, right?
Yeah, it's people say it's like a whole weight off their shoulders. They feel lighter, happier, more joyous, more giving, more clear. It really is a source of many, many people's unhappiness. And once you see that, and once you realize that by letting go, you're the one who wins, your family wins, your friends win, your wife wins, your children win, everybody wins. There are no losers in forgiveness.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. And going back to children, I know, again, I'm bouncing around here. I love just sharing and being free flow with you. Children, you've given me some advice that I'd like you to share with everybody as well about, hey, I only got one child, so we can't mess this one up, right? Some people like to hedge their bets and have 2, 3, 4, 5, and hey, they don't have to be perfect with all of them, right? But we have one child, so obviously I'm very aware of how we're raising her, the words I use, making sure, my wife and I are setting a great example of love, kindness, and you had given us there's two separate exercises you gave us. One is when we sit down for dinner and have a conversation. And I wonder if you could share that with everybody about, what you shared with me and the benefits of asking the questions and leading this conversation at the dinner table.
And this is a beautiful exercise. So we would sit around the table and I would start the conversation with something like, honey, to my wife, what did you do today that you were not thankful? So she would say something like, well, I cooked this amazing meal and no one said thank you. Then I would say, remember, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Honey, I really want to thank you for the love and energy that you've put into this meal so that we could all be healthy and strong. I really appreciate you so much for doing that. Then my son would acknowledge her, and then my daughter would acknowledge her. Then I would ask my son, what have you done today that you've not been thankful? Then I would ask my daughter. The next question we would ask is, what are you grateful for today? And we go around the table. And the next question would be, what act of kindness did you see today? We would go around the table. What act of kindness did you perform today? we would go around the table. And then another question is, what was magical about today? What was special? What was funny? What was different? So that's like an impromptu type of answer. And the last question is there anything on your mind that you'd like to talk over? So one day my son said to me, "Hey, Dad, I do have something." I said, "Son, what is it?" He said, "Well, Dad, you lied to me." And I was taken aback, really. I thought, wow, I've got a very, very high level of integrity. Son, I'm intrigued. I really work hard in keeping a high level of integrity. But what is it I did? He said, "Well, Dad, the other day you said you would come and play with me in 15 minutes. You took an hour." I said, "Son, you know what? You're right. I was out of integrity. I lied to you. Would you have the heart to forgive me?" We take our children for granted. If it was a business person or a business meeting, we wouldn't have done that.
Sure.
So it's so important that we realize the impact of our words, our gestures to our children, because they are impacted immediately. They see things so clearly. They see things so clearly.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's one of those things too, where having that open dialogue. Again, we just have one child, so when we sit around the dinner table, there's no cell phones. We turn off the TV. We might have some light music on in the background, but having that habit of us saying, "Hey, honey, what were you thankful for today? What kindness did you see today?" And hearing my daughter, who's 6 years old, saying, "Oh, at kindergarten today, so and so helped glue a craft and helped cut some paper for another child." So I love that because she's looking for kindness in the world. She's expecting to see it somewhere, right? So not only does she see it in others, then when you ask the question, "Well, what did you do that was kind today?" So in her mind, we kind of planted a seed like, "Oh, well, I don't know, my mom and dad are going to ask me what I did was kind." So it's kind of like a natural thing that she's going to go out of her way to be kind to people. And I tell you what, when you see a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old doing selfless, loving, kind things with no, attachment or anything, it's just an amazing feeling, right?
Absolutely. And then the next part of the exercise is next day my wife would lead the meeting.
Yes.
And the day after my son would lead the meeting. My son was about, I think, 9 when he first started.
Okay.
So, and my daughter was 7. So imagine a 9-year-old leading a meeting that he has to be respectful, he has to be aware, he has to be present, he has to have leadership skills, and he has to show up differently. And then the next day my daughter would lead the meeting. So At first it's a little bit awkward, because they don't really understand it. But then they get into it, and then Ken, the most beautiful thing happens. Imagine you have a child that comes up to you and says, "I'm going to get tearful here." Excuse me. Yeah. "Dad, I'm having problems at school."
Okay.
If that wasn't picked up, what could have happened?
Yeah.
Teenage suicide is all about unworthiness. So we can pick these things up much quicker.
Yeah, I agree, and thanks for sharing that. It is such a powerful thing, and really the last question that a lot of people don't even get bothered to ask is there anything else on your mind that you want to share?
Yeah.
And it's just asking somebody that, whether or not they say it right away, or they might say something else, and then coming across, giving somebody an outlet to share, right? Because a lot of the time it's just sharing those feelings that we have inside when we're sad or feeling unworthy for anything, and knowing that somebody's there to listen and asking those questions just has such a profound effect. And like you said, seeing your 7-year-old daughter and then your 9-year-old son leading the meetings, the skills they get as far as being respectful and letting people speak and sharing and being empathetic and leading is invaluable.
Yeah.
And again, thanks for sharing as well. And another great exercise you had me do, which I love doing with my daughter, is, again, she's 6 right now, and we're kind of very not always have our eye on her as far as what she's doing, but building that independence. and in a safe environment. And I wonder if you could share what you suggested to me about sort of watching them from afar and giving them kind of duties or stepping up. Can you share that?
Sure. So again, we come back to Richard Branson. When he was around 5, I think his grandmother put him in the middle of a field 4 miles from home and told to get home. And I thought, wow, if that happened to Richard Branson, it must have been a good thing. So I suggested that to my wife. She said, "Are you crazy? Are you crazy?" And I said, "Yeah, maybe I am." But we did something similar. I would take my son and daughter to the middle of central London and ask them to get home. But I would prep them up on who to ask questions with, who to be careful of, where to stand. But I told them, look, I'm going to be 10 feet behind you, but you have to assume I'm not there. Yes. So really that you have to throw adversity at your children, but only throw adversity at your children that they can handle.
Yeah.
So as they became stronger and stronger, I could throw more adversity at them. So, for example, at the age of 18, my daughter went around the world alone. And wow. That's an amazing thing because she's fearless now. And the greatest gift you can give your children is this. Give them the ability to handle any situation. That's the greatest gift. It's not love, it's not patience, it's not security. It's that ability to handle anything. So therefore, when you do that, you get even more love because they're whole and complete.
Yeah, I agree. That is one of the biggest gifts. It seems the more I see more coddling and more parents kind of trying to live their children's lives for them in this, falsehood of, protecting them and not allowing them to grow. And like you said, I think that is the biggest gift, is dealing with adversity. And, anytime my daughter and I play a game or do something, she says, "Daddy, it's too hard," or "Stop hitting the ping pong to my backhand." And I said, "Honey, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better." That's what it's going to come down to, because we're all going to be faced with things. And, I think I saw a great example you used. You brought somebody up on stage and you started throwing a water bottle at them, right? And, it's like, hey, as long as you can catch that water bottle, if another one comes, you're going to catch that. If another one comes, you're going to catch that. Just deal with it. And there's 1,000 different things that are going to come to you. And knowing that you have the power to overcome any minor challenge or major challenge at such an early age is so powerful. And, like you said with your 2 kids, leaving them in a field like Richard Branson, maybe is not an option for most people, but like you suggested for me is, if you're at a store. So if usually say we're at Target or a store and we need help finding something, I'd say, "Honey, why don't you go up to that person over there and ask for help and ask where whatever the toothpaste aisle is, right? And say, I'm not going to come with you. I'm not going to hold your hand. Look them in the eye, tell them hello, and say, hey, I have a question for you. And it gets easier and easier for them to do it. The first time maybe, and like, no, I don't want to do it. It's okay. And, then it becomes a powerful gesture, right? Where they're all of a sudden wanting to reach out and, take control of the situation, which again, I think building this confidence in our youth and our children at an early age is so powerful, knowing that, yes, our parents are here to support, love us, and raise us in an incredible environment, and also letting us grow and developing our powers early without that dependence or, whether it's emotional or physical dependence. And thank you again for that. That's just another great thing we've added to our family, and we love seeing that grow. So thank you for that. A couple other things before we wrap this up. Again, I thank you for your time. Time's just flying by. If people want to get more on a journey, and we're definitely going to talk about your book and how they could get that, what are 3 books that have impacted you the most? I'm a big reader. Over here, I got a huge bookshelf over here. I'm always curious, like, what are some of the top 3 books that you just love, that you go back to, that you read once and then, maybe 2 years later you read it again, you're like, oh my gosh, I love this. This is the best for me. What do you like to read?
Really, I only have one book I recommend,
okay.
And that's Think and Grow Rich. It's a manual for success. It has everything you need in there. if you develop a burning desire, if you start serving other people way beyond what their expectations are, you grow, you become a different person. It's not about what happens in life, it's who you become. So really,
Yes.
Think and Grow Rich, it's a beautiful, beautiful book. Other books I read Robert Kiyosaki's book,
Okay.
and I like Louise Hay, I like Wayne Dyer. They have beautiful books, beautiful content. Norman Vincent Peale, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. So, what do you think are the overlapping themes in all these books? And you touched on it a little bit as well. But what does it all come down to? Because and I get guilty of this too, where sometimes I want to read all these books, thinking like, oh, there's one thing that I don't know that's in this book, right? But sometimes it reminds us of what we already know. What are a couple of the themes? And I know we mentioned this earlier, but what do you think all these great books have in common, like the Think and Grow Rich and the Wayne Dyers and the Louise Hayes? What are a couple of things that are overlapping themes that you always see that people always need to focus on?
Well, the one thing is find what you love.
Mm-hmm.
Do what you love. Don't stop doing what you love.
Got it.
And I asked Richard Branson, what advice would you give young people these days? They're faced with Facebook challenges and social media challenges. And he said, look, Anil, there's one thing I recommend all young people do, or anybody do, is to do what they love. And the money will always come. He said, I've never done anything I haven't loved. So
Yes.
that's the number one thing. Do what you love. The second thing is you have to serve. Provide a service, do something, and focus on other people. Don't focus on you. As soon as you start focusing on you, it gets very painful and very uncomfortable. So you have to serve. The moment you serve, and this is something I really tell people, it's so important. The moment you start serving, the pain within disappears. So it cleanses you, it nutrifies you, and it takes you to the next level.
Yeah, I agree. And I've been guilty of that in the past too, only focusing on what I want. I want to make $500,000 a year doing this, doing that, without really thinking about, well, what am I giving of value to the world in order to receive that? And, I've heard somewhere where, if you want to be a millionaire, solve 1,000,000 people's problems. If you want to be a billionaire, solve 1,000,000,000 people's problems, right? And I love that quote because it really puts it into perspective where it takes the focus off you and you look at the world and the billions of people out there and say, well, if there's 1,000,000,000 people having this problem and I think I could help them, that's great. There's going to be plenty of money coming back to you, right? When you think of it from a financial sense as well.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And
Fun stuff. Well, I definitely want to. I have your book right here. I've read it many times, and like you said, it's a manual. Every time I pick it up, they're very short chapters that are so rich with wisdom and little reminders of what to do. And I love reading all your stories on here. It's called Immediate Happiness because we don't want 5 years later happiness, right? But I definitely recommend everybody pick up a copy of it. And you also have a website too called, and forgive me, the Happiness Score, right? Tell us about that.
Well, I have two. My main website is immediatehappiness.com. But, how do we know how happy we are? So I've developed a quiz. It's 25 questions, takes 3 minutes. It's called myhappinessscore.com. And can I share a story?
Yeah, of course.
So I did this test with the entire family. So my kids did it, my wife did it, and I looked at the results, and to be honest, I got very upset because I thought they'd have higher scores. And then I thought, why am I upset? I thought, it's my ego. It's that feeling that I didn't do a good job. I'm a failure. But then I spoke to the kids and I said, hey kids, why did you write that? I said, well, Dad, it's the truth. I said, okay, I got it. So then we looked into it and I said, yeah, you know what? I could improve this. We could do this. We could do this. So by you doing it as a family and you see a disparity in the scores, you can exactly find out where you need to work on. So when you do this test, you'll get a score and you'll get detailed breakdown of areas of your life that you need to work on. And that's what gives you the clarity.
Yes, so important. Thank you so much for putting that up there, because I know it's helped change my life and the relationships I have with not only my wife but my child, and everybody else that I come across too. So, well, Neil, thank you so much. This has been awesome. Time has just flown by here. I love spending every moment I can with you, and just really appreciate you, my friend. And thank you for coming on. I can't wait till we could play some tennis again soon.
Yeah,
and meet up in person. It's virtual tennis is not the same as being out there on the court, right? But
absolutely.
Thank you so much, Anil.
All right. Thank you, my friend.
We'll see you soon.
All right.
Bye
Take
now.
care. Bye.